Hi, and welcome to part 2 of this PowerShell tutorial series on RestPS, where we basically make a REST API with PowerShell to make it available to other languages like Python, Java, or use it in a React.js application. So it's very similar to what you would be able to do with Express in JavaScript or Fast API with Python. In the first video, we've seen how to set it up and start the listener. So to start the listener, it is just this right here. And today we are going to be looking at how to create a basic route taking request arguments. And a slight little notice on this video is I am using a new mic that I just received. So just let me know if this sounds okay or if there's something that sounds a little weird compared to the other videos. But from what I've seen with my tests that I've done, it should sound pretty good. So let's go ahead and let's get started on the video here. So we're going to first create a route. So the route that we're basically going to create is going to be to get our Active Directory users. So basically this would allow us to create like an application or something to get Active Directory users very easily. Since some languages like Python or Java might have a little bit more of a complex way of getting Active Directory users to display in the application, we are going to be using an API coded with PowerShell, making it super, super easy for us to be able to get that data. So basically we're going to create the route, set it all up, and then we're going to be testing it in Postman over here, and we're going to see the results that we get. So let's go ahead and let's get started here. So the first thing we're going to want to do is actually take in the request arguments. So to do that here, we are going to type in param and then open and close parentheses. So very similar to like a commandlet or a function. We're going to type in param and we're just going to do a $sign request args. And this is going to be the request arguments. So basically what a request argument is kind of like at the end of your URL for the REST API command, you would have some properties and some values that you're passing along in a query string. So you can pass along like the SAM account name, which is what we're going to be doing, or an office or a title, which is also something that we are going to be doing as well. So, and there are a lot of APIs that use this. It's definitely a little bit more of a basic way. More standard way would be using to pass in a body, but there are still some very widely used APIs that use the request arguments. Even Microsoft's Graph API does still use this method for some of their calls. So it is still widely used. So the first thing we want to see is we want to see if there is a multiple request arguments. So multiple arguments. So the first thing we're going to do is if the request args is like, so dash like, then comma, comma, quote, quote, and then we're going to do a star, star. Then in the middle of the stars, we're going to do the and sign, then close parentheses, then open and close curly brackets. And then we're going to do an else statement and then open and close curly brackets. So here we have like basically if they have the and sign. So if we specify 2 properties or more, it'll go in here. If we only specify 1 property, it'll go in here. So what I'm making is I'm making something that we want to be able to create a route where a user can specify an office and a title, and it'll give you all the users in that office or title or the combination of everyone in that office with that title. So that's what we're going to be pulling. So what we want to do here, the first thing that we're going to want to do is get all the argument pairs if we pass in an office and a title here. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing arg pairs, and then we're going to do that equal to request args dot split on the ampersand sign or the and sign. So basically what this is going to do is going to split up our request arguments. So what I'm going to be doing is just at the top here, I'm going to write out what our call is basically going to look like, just so you guys can actually have like a visual representation, because I kind of understand that this might be a little bit confusing. So this is going to be our users, and then we're going to have our question mark. Then we're going to have office equals, let's just say Toronto here, and sign, and then we're going to have title equals CEO. So this is basically going to be our URL. So if we split it on here, basically what we're going to be getting is we're going to be getting an array of office equals to Toronto and title equal to CEO. So what we want to do is we want to grab these two property value pairs and we want to be able to treat them. So what we're going to do here is we are actually going to be creating a new object, and we're going to call it the request object, because this will represent our entire request. So we're going to do a request obj equals new object. So we've seen this before, and we're going to do a type name of PS object. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do the for each arg pairs. So for each pair in arg pairs, we are going to do a, so basically what we're doing is for each pair, so we're going to have one pair, which is office equal to Toronto and title equal to CEO. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to split up our property and our value. So the way that we can do that easily in PowerShell here is just by setting up a variable called property, comma, variable called value equals pair dot split on the equal sign. So what this is going to do is going to split up property as our first one and Toronto as our second one. So this will basically be the property will be office and the value will be Toronto. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a add member, and our input object is going to be the request obj, and our member type is going to be note property, and our name is going to be property, and our value is, you've guessed it, it's going to be value. All right, and then what we're going to do, since we know that this is going to be the ampersand sign, so we know that we have a user that's specified office and title. Now, the reason why you know this is in your API documentation, when you would give them this route, which this is a poorly named route, like it's probably should be have a better name than users. Maybe I'll come up with a more clever name by the time we create the route. But we know that we're going to be specifying office and title, or just office or just title, because that's what we would document in our documentation. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up our office variable, and we're going to set that to request obj dot office, because we know that we're going to be splitting on this, which is going to be the property, which is going to be office, and the value, which is going to be set to Toronto. So this is going to set it office to Toronto, and then we are going to have a variable called title, and we are going to set that to request obj dot title. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do another if statement of if office dash and title. So if office and title both exist and they are not null, we are going to go ahead and we are going to go users equals get AD user, get dash AD user. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a filter. And then in that filter, what I like to do, and there might be, you could definitely combine the two filters in here. But what I like to do is just do office dash like our office variable. And then our properties is going to be a star, because we want to pull back everything of that user. And our server, since we only have one server, we don't need to give that option to the user to put it in. Otherwise, if you did have like multiple domains, you could add another ampersand sign in here and specify the domain, and then you would just have an additional pair here. So you would have an additional option here for domain, and you would set it equal to the domain that you would want. And you can even do properties like the options here are endless. This is a very, very basic example that I'm showing for this request args. So then we have our server. So then what we're going to do is we're going to pipe that to where object title like title. Now the reason why I'm doing like and not equals is because I don't want to limit the user to have to type it in with case sensitivity. With the like, it doesn't make it case sensitive. And with the like operator, if they decided to type in a star, it'll get me everybody in the Toronto office if I do it this way. So it's just a little bit more of a little bit flexible for the end user to do it with the like. Again, this is completely up to you if you wanted to use like or equals. Just make sure that if you do the equals, make sure to specify your documentation of the API that you're building that it is case sensitive. So if they typed in Toronto all lowercase, and in your Active Directory it is Toronto with an uppercase T, they won't get any results back. So once we get our users here, we are going to do return users. And then in our else statement here, what we are going to do is we're going to do return, and we're going to return a string called invalid request. And then what we're going to do is for the else statement, for right now, we're just going to do a return invalid request, and we're going to come back to this else statement so we can treat if they just do office or just do title. But this is what we're going to set up for now. So we're going to save this. And the place where you're going to save it is you're going to go into the location where you created your RestPS folder. So the default location is C RestPS. That's what we created it in our first video. So once you're in here, you're going to go into endpoints. For us, it's going to be a get because we're just getting info. And we're going to call this invoke get AD users. Get invoke AD users, and we're just going to add the number 1 because we're going to be building out another one later on. So there we are. So we have our PowerShell script, and then what we want to do is we want to be able to call that route. So the way that we do that is you go into your RestPS folder location once again, into your endpoints folder, and there will be a RestPS routes file here that we've seen, and it is a JSON file. So I like to open it in Notepad++, but you can open it in any text editor that you'd like. I would definitely recommend something that does treat JSON easy. So probably not just the built-in Notepad, but anything like Notepad++, Atom, Sublime, Visual Studio Code, all those options really work. So we're just going to edit that here. Should open up soon. All right, so here we are. So what I like to do, because it already comes with get, put, post, and delete options, all I really do is I just copy paste one of the gets here, and I just paste it in right underneath to keep all my gets together. And then our request URL, let's just put it to users. Like I said, this isn't a really great descriptive. It is pretty descriptive, like we're getting back users. But it could probably be a little bit better. And then our request command. So this is where we're going to put our PowerShell script name. So it was invoke get AD users 1.ps1. So let's save that there. So we have that. So now what we're going to do is we are going to start our listener, and we are going to see what we can pull back data-wise. All right, so we've started our listener here. There should be more that happens here. Let's just give it a second to see what will happen. It should start up. Let's just see. Give it a few moments here. There we are. All right, so it is capturing incoming requests. All right, so let's go ahead and let's go into Postman here. So let me just bring up Postman, and we're going to start up a new tab. So what we're going to do is we're going to type in our server address in here, which for you, if you're doing it on the same machine, it would just be localhost port 8080 because we are still using port 8080 here. But for me, it's going to be on my server that is not located on this computer. So we're going to do 172.30.123.5, which is the IP address of the computer here. And we are going to do port 8080, and then we're going to do /user and then question mark. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do office equals Toronto and title equals, let's just do a star because I'm not really too sure there what's going to happen. And then we hit send. All right, so we didn't get anyone back, which is fine. Or we got actually an error 404 not found. Oh, users, not user. Let's see if we get that back. All right, so here we are. So we got all of our users. So because I specified office equals Toronto and title equals star, it'll get me all the users in Toronto here. So what we can see is we only get one user back here, which is going to be LC Murphy. But one of our examples here that I know will come back as 2 is if we do Vancouver. So here we have Matthew Wilkins here. And if I minimize this one, we also have Mamie McCoy. And that's it. And then if I wanted to get, let's say, from any office with the position of star dev star, so any position that might be probably a developer. So let's see who we get here. So here we have Beatrice Patterson here. We have Cloyd Doyle. We have Janie Malone. And we have Belle Hines. So we have tons of our data. We have all of our data coming back. So we have our 4 developers, which is exactly what we have. We have 2 senior and 2 juniors. Now, I'm going to show you guys what happens if we just did office equals star. Right now, we get invalid request. If we just do a title, we get invalid request. If we do office equals Toronto and Sam account name equals star, we get invalid request. So of course you could definitely make your error handling a little bit better to kind of give more of a reason why it is not working. But again, like if your documentation is super clear, you should definitely be providing what properties it takes in. So that should always be super clear, but let's go ahead and let's make it work on if we just have office equal to Toronto. So let's go back to our script here. And you don't have to stop the listener. You can just go right back into your script and we can start modifying some stuff here. So we're going to go back to our script here. So in our else statement, so this is where we know that we don't have the ampersand sign or the and sign. So this would be the case of just this, or title equals CEO or something like that. So what we want to do is we just want to remove this return invalid request. And then what we are going to want to do is we're going to want to split because we know that we're only going to have an equal sign. So we can simply do property and then value equals request args dot split on the equal sign. And then we have if property, and then we're going to do like office. So once again, we are not limiting them to case sensitivity of having to type office all like uppercase O or something. That will take care of that. So they can do an uppercase O, they can do it all uppercase, all lowercase. It really doesn't matter. So if the property is like office, what we want to do is we want to do a basically just copy this here. What we're doing is we're going to do users get AD user filter where the office is like value. And then what we can do is also we can then do else or else if in this case actually we can do property like title, and then we can just do the same exact thing here, and we can just do title like value, and then what we would do is do a return users here and do a return users here as well. And then basically if they typed in was an else statement, so anything other than title or office, we are going to return invalid request. Now, what you could do that would be actually pretty cool to do, that you could, do in this case, would be instead of just take out the property, take out the value, and then do a get AD users, filter it, and then you can do use your property here, like, and then value here. And I'm pretty sure that that would work. We can actually try it right after this here. So let's save this and let's see, let's go back to our Postman and let's see if just Office Toronto works. So here we are, all of our users in Toronto. If we want to get a title, which is just CEO, we will get our CEO, Frederick Smith. If we want to get all of our developers again, so star, dev, star, we have our Bell Hines, we have Beatrice Patterson again, Clyde Doyle, and Janie Malone. So that is perfect. So all of that works here. And then what we could do is if we did like, in this case, Sam count name equals Murphy E, we get invalid request because we don't accept Sam account name as a property. But what we could do in this case would actually to be is if we did a try and then a catch, and then in the catch we can do return invalid request, and in the try we can do users equals get AD user, and then we can do a filter of property like value, and then properties will be star because we want to make sure that we get all the properties, and the server will be jacked.ca, and that should be good. And then we're going to do a return users here, and we're going to save that. So now if we run our Sam account name equals Murphy E, in theory that does work. So this becomes a very, very flexible option here with the else statement. It really gives the ability to search on any property. So it definitely does work. When you have multiple options, you definitely have to code them a little bit more. So this is a little bit of like a catch-all solution. And then you can have all your like specific options here. So that is the basic request arguments. Now, I'm going to show you guys a downside to this request arguments because as we know in our Active Directory, if you followed the tutorials on my channel so far, one of our locations is New York, which has a space in it. So if we wanted to get all the users from New York City, and we did office equals New York, hit send, we're going to get a bad request because it's a space. Now, even if you did like the typical like %20 here for the space, we still get a bad request. We can't treat this option because of the space. So this is where the API with a body instead of a request argument would definitely be handy is if you have something that might have some spaces. Now you could code around this and tell the user put this instead of the space, but that just becomes very, very convoluted and becomes a little bit more complicated than it should be. So in the next video, I'm going to show you guys how to turn this request arguments route into a route that takes in a body and will do the exact same thing. So that's what we're going to be building out in the next video. So be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell to be notified when that next video, and I will see you guys in the next video.